Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. And in this video, I want to share with you my experience in reading Star Trek Volume 2 of the IDW Library Comics. I shared my first volume experience with you, and you seemed to really like it. Thank you so much for watching. I wanted to see if they kept up the quality, not only of the writing, storytelling, making the characters seem like the ones we've seen in the live action series, as well as in the artwork. And I've got a few interesting things to tell you about this one. And if you haven't read it, you might be surprised, as I was. But before we get started, be sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this, as well as my other videos on faith, health, beauty, Netflix reviews, mashups, and more all year round. So I have this book actually in front of me, and you'll see some pictures coming up, both I've gotten online and that I personally took from the book that I have. And the cover looks really gorgeous. You see characters from the Next Generation. You've got Captain Picard, Data, and Lieutenant Yar, and of course the Starship Enterprise beneath them. This is gorgeous. The color is fantastic. The artwork is fantastic. And as you can see, they actually look like the actors who portray them on TV. This is always a plus, at least for me. Sometimes people like when they get a little more creative or they deviate from how the person looks in real life. I want them to look like they look. That was one small drawback for the Supernatural anime, or Supernatural the series, where Sam and Dean didn't really look like themselves, but they corrected that with the Scooby-Doo Supernatural crossover. So, in this volume, you've got two sections. One starts at page 4. It's called Star Trek The Next Generation, The Space Between, written by David Tishman, art by Casey Maloney. And there are several stories that take place within this section. Then you get to page 150, and you've got Star Trek The Next Generation, called Intelligence Gathering, written by Scott Tipton and David Tipton, and art by David Messina. Now, one thing that really stands out is when you start with The Space Between, the artwork looks very different from the cover art. And you kind of are wondering what's going on. Maybe it was a style preference or so forth. Then you turn the page to The Space Between to start the story, and the characters don't look like the characters. You barely recognize them. And unfortunately, along with that goes with the storytelling. You don't feel like these characters are the characters you're used to or you see. I found it very slow and disappointing. So disappointing that after the first story, I actually put this comic book down for weeks. I got it from the library, in case you're wondering. I didn't want to read it. I was just so disappointed in that first story. And I was debating whether I should take it back to the library or should I give it another try. So I decided weeks later to give it another try. You see a picture here where it looks more lifelike for Picard and for Data. Then we get to the next story of The Space Between. The characters still don't look like the characters. In the first one, Commander Riker doesn't look like himself at all in that first story. In here, at least they give him some facial hair. It kind of makes you think who they're going for. You've got them partying. You've got Dr. Crusher, who doesn't like Dr. Crusher. And again, for me, that was a really big drawback to reading this comic in the beginning. And again, it made me almost give up. Worf looks like Worf. That's not too difficult. He wears makeup on the series and a mask, so all they had to do was match the mask. But other than that, they were not matching. I don't mean to be really critical, but I want my characters to not only look like the characters, but to feel like I'm reading about them. In here, number 2 looks like Orson Welles. I don't know why, but he does. And I really struggle with continuing on. So I said, you know what, let me go ahead and try reading up to the second section, because the first section just doesn't feel like the Next Generation series. The characters aren't the characters. The pacing is slow and it's boring and it's dull, and they think that they're giving you something that's interesting, but unfortunately the writer isn't. It's just dull. So here's a nice page you're seeing here of 4 members of the cast, and you see the artwork looks fantastic. It looks just like them. This is what I want when I see the artwork within the comic, and I want the characters to look like themselves when I'm reading it. So I skipped ahead now. I'm skipping ahead to 150 because, as I said, I really just didn't like the first part of this book. And skipping ahead really was the best thing I could have done. So give me a minute, guys. I've got to find page 150. The pages are not clearly marked. I don't know why. And that's another thing that made it kind of difficult. In the first book, you could tell where the pages were. They were clearly marked, easy to know where you need to leave off to get pictures and so forth. But in here, they make it a little difficult. Okay, so now we're to the last story of the space between. And now this story actually gets a little better. You have them gathering, you have them together in this final picture for the space between. And you see them having a toast and it ends. Well, that is more like the group, but it was a lackluster ending to a lackluster section. So now we get to section 2, intelligence gathering. Here you see the first page. The characters look more like the characters you're familiar with. Will Riker really looks off, kind of, but you still have Picard and Data who are looking more. Get to the next page and you see this beautiful artwork of Riker and Data. And then the story starts off with Riker being in a hologram, and he's participating in the simulation of him being in the World War II and him being a fighter pilot. And Picard says, I'm sorry I have to interrupt you, but we need your help. And this is when the book gets great. First half is like, for me, I would tell you, don't read any of the space between, pretend it doesn't exist. You get volume 2, start at page 150 with Star Trek The Next Generation, Intelligence Gathering. This is fantastic. The story it has lots of action, there's lots of drama, there's lots of depth to the characters, not only the ones that we know, but some new characters they have introduced for, I'm going to say, this episode within the comic. They make them interesting, they're fleshed out, they seem real, they look real, and within these chapters you've got more great artwork that just made me really happy. Worf was Worf, Picard was Picard, Will was Will, Crusher was Crusher. I just really enjoyed reading this second section. It was like watching an actual Star Trek episode from The Next Generation. And you've got this mystery going on where the ship actually has someone on it who tricks the Enterprise into beaming up, saying they need help in a distress signal. And then they find out it's actually Romulans, and Romulans want Data. But more than that, on the ship, they're getting readings that there's a problem that's going to lead to an explosion. The captain of that ship doesn't believe it. So you have, of course, Geordi, who's here to check it out. And then you have O'Brien. And there's a man in here that's telling them, I'm getting these readings, I've been getting these readings, and I know that no one believes me. And I know they're telling me they're false readings, and they want to put me off the ship, they want to fire me. But I'm telling you, I'm getting readings that indicate that there is an anomaly within the ship, within the workings, and it's going to blow up. So O'Brien and Geordi check it out, and somehow they're getting the same readings too. But of course, using more advanced technology from the Enterprise. They discover that the anomaly has been planted. There's a device that is giving this reading, and they find that out after they actually go in to the workings of the computer and the program to try to stop the ship from blowing up. And that's when they realize that someone put it in and it's a sabotage. This is good. It's so good I don't want to ruin it for you. And then you've got this page here. You've got 3 of the female crew members being badass as they usually are. Artwork is fantastic. Troy looks like Troy in the first part of this book. The space between Troy didn't even look like Troy. I was like, who is this? And learned it was Troy. But you get a satisfying story, a satisfying conclusion with characters that are performing highly as you expect them to, that are brilliant, intelligent, conversational, caring, professional. You get everything that you want in a Star Trek Next Generation story. And it's written really well. So again, I'll tell you, the writers for the second half are Scott Tipton and David Tipton, and they need to be commandeered, and I hope they've written other volumes. And the art is by David Messina. This second half of this book is awesome and amazing, and if you're a Star Trek fan, specifically Next Generation, you really got to read. This is the last page here, and Picard says, all to get us here. Perhaps next time, Commander, you might simply ask for assistance. And the gentleman says, what is it they say, Captain? Romulans fear disgrace more than death. Well, Namalai says, at least one of you understands us. And this is a great way to end this story. You don't know anything except for the crisis is being abated. But this book is fantastic from the second half on. I'll read the back to you quickly. Star Trek Library Collection is a comprehensive line of books that will collect every Star Trek comic series published by IDW. Join Captain Jean-Luc Picard and the crew of the USS Enterprise in these comics from the Next Generation first, in the space between travel to Tegan 7, Condom 9, Uncharted Space, and more, each leading the dedicated crew into unexpected adventures, brought to you by David Tishman and Casey Maloney. And again, that's the first half of the book. Don't like it, don't read it. In Intelligence Gathering, what seems to be a series of unrelated missions is soon revealed to be part of a larger conspiracy involving a threat unlike any that Picard has ever faced. Can the crew piece together the puzzle before it's too late? By writers Scott Tipton and David Tipton, woohoo! With artists David Messina, Mirko Pierfederici, Gianluigi Gregorini, and Sarah Pichelli. Fantastic job. Second half of this book is amazing. If you decide you want to buy this book, it's $30 US. I would say get it from the library, unless you're a huge fan that's collecting the volumes from the IDW library. Otherwise, get it from the library and enjoy it. If you have read Star Trek Volume 2 from the IDW library collection, let me know in the comments. And if you read Volume 1 or watched my video, what did you like most about Volume 1? And did you like the first half of Volume 2? Or like me, hated it and thought the second half was fantastic? What are your thoughts? Tell me. And if you haven't and you're a Star Trek fan, get the book from the library and read only the second half. Do not waste your time with the first, because it's just not an enjoyable read. But with that, I'm Julie. Thank you so much for joining me today. And based on the second half of this book, I probably will get the third book and see if the quality matches the second half of this one. I really hope so, or it even matches the quality of the first one, which would be fantastic. Thank you again for joining me. Continue to be happy, healthy, whole, and also wonderful, my specials. See you next time.